Stanislav Zinchenko, CEO of GMK Center. Hello and thank you for sitting with us today.
Thank you, thank you.
So GMK is a Ukrainian consulting company focused on the European iron and steel market. You are relatively young but well affirmed in the steel European market and above all Ukrainian market. Let's start from here. What is happening on the Ukrainian steel market with the ongoing war?
You know that last year, so people already don't want to talk about what was before war. It's already more than 3 years. So what we're talking about that last year and this year, yeah. So last year it was growth of steel volume increased in Ukraine. Steel production increased almost 23%, and pig iron 20%. Iron ore more than 3 times production. Why it was so? Because our sea corridor that we have right now, the Black Sea, the main logistic route, work already. Of course, with not so big capacity, of course, with high logistic costs, 2 times more than before war, but it worked. And that's why we can tell right now that Ukrainian iron and steel products coming back to global market, and already Ukraine took, as it was before war, 3rd place globally in largest pig iron supplier. And we are in top 5 of the biggest iron ore supplier globally. So like metallics, we're coming back. We're coming back to the market. With steel, of course, our volume's not so big right now. Working on existing and Ukrainian control, only 6 steel plants. 5 of them are in operation. So Ukrainian steel industry right now look like most suffered globally, like a steel industry, with a huge reduction in capacity and also in output.
So production is slowly picking up despite all the difficulties, but we are seeing that production levels are suffering in the whole Europe. Do you think that this trend of growth of production levels on the Ukrainian market could continue to go on in the next few months?
No. We already I think last year we're already on the top. So we produce 580,000 ton of crude steel per month. And as I told you, from these 5 steel plants, practically all 4 of them are with already work with huge capacity utilization. No room for more. Only ArcelorMittal, that the biggest plants, has potential to grow steel production, but they produce rebar, wire rods, mostly for local market, not for export. That's why our estimation and our prognosis that in this year, because of many challenges that we have, not only in Ukraine, but also globally and in Europe, China, Europe, many challenges, Ukrainian steel production can be less than 2024. We expect that it will be 10% less than 2024. So our steel production this year can be 6.8 million ton of crude steel. So we will go. Our expectation is that we will go down.
You mentioned that Ukrainian steel products managed to come back to the European market after the initial really difficult phase, but Europe is working on the suspension of import quotas and duties on Ukrainian exports, and there will be a response by June the 5th. What do you think could happen?
It's big negotiation. I also have small part of it because I prepared some analytics for our Ministry of Economy that taking part in this negotiation, and it's a big amount of questions there. First of all, Europe and Ukraine negotiate about our grain and agro export. Yeah, so it's a main topic because last year 40% of Ukrainian export was agro and grain export. Of course, we expect that Europe will find new solution, new way to work with Ukraine without any quotas and trade restrictions because of our iron and steel products. Really, quantity are very, very low. It's 3 times less than, or even 4 times less than before war. So our export, it's a very small part of European import. Also very important to understand in all these trade negotiation and topics that Ukraine is a not third country for Europe. We are a future member of European Union. People look on us, even in Brussels right now, even here in Milan or in Germany, like third country. We are not third country for Europe. We are already part of European market. We are already part of European economy. For example, our analysts in GMK look on Ukrainian steel market and steel production, not like separate. Right now, we are part of European one. That's all. So that's why I'm quite optimistic about this negotiation, but we still have the biggest challenge. It's a carbon border adjustment mechanism. Of course, Ukraine and Ukrainian iron and steel sector will be most suffered from CBAM. We have estimation and calculation that our annual losses in 2030, when price of CBAM will be already big, certificates will be more than 1.6 billion US dollars of export losses. So it's for us, it's look not normal. First of all, Ukrainian iron and steel industry is unique. Still with all these losses, last year it was 7% of Ukrainian GDP and 15% of Ukrainian export. So it's very important, and the biggest taxpayer in industry and the biggest investor in industry, in Ukrainian industry, in economy. So if our basic sector will suffer like that, and from this it was 12 big steel plants, right now only 5 work, yeah, so it will be closed 3 or 2 more. Europe will need to support us financial more and more. So for me it's not logical. So that's why I hope that European Council will exclude Ukraine from CBAM, because in CBAM exists regulation. I remember this regulation 30.7 that during because of force majeure, it can be waiver within CBAM. Yeah. So war in Ukraine is force majeure, guys. So that's why I hope it will be accepted, and Ukraine will be all on pause or partly will be excluded from CBAM.
Well, on top of that, the Commission is also working on a simplification of the CBAM, so we'll see what will happen in this field. And what happened with the suspension of VAT refunds in January?
Yeah,
Many companies were not happy with this.
It's classic problem for Ukraine. All 20 years that I'm, I would say, active in economy. Yeah? So in Ukraine was always very export-oriented countries, and the biggest problem that you never can understand here in Europe about Ukraine, that for us, for our company, it's not so easy to get some financing from international market. Ukrainian financing for your export operation, it's very, very expensive. So, and you must understand that during war, our companies, they are working globally. You know, everybody know Ukrainian company, Ferexpo, Interpipe, Medinvest, and ArcelorMittal, and so on. So, but they cannot find financing for their operation. Yeah. So what? It's VAT. It's their working capital, and if they have not refund of this VAT in time, they cannot export. They have a problem with that. So before war, of course, it was possibility to some financing, debt financing from outside. Yeah, but right now nobody will finance steel plants or even other exporters, not only steel plants, during war. That's why it's very, very important timely VAT refund. And already one iron ore mine closed because of this, and already we have official information that Ferexpo forced to reduce production to 25% of full capacity, and it will be less. It will be lead to minus 4 million ton of iron ore production in 2025 because of VAT refund. So it's a really problem, because if you don't have cash flow, so you cannot pay salary, pay taxes, and export.
Of course, we have a few more minutes, but there are a couple more questions I would like to ask you, one on Europe and one on Italy. First of all, Europe is thinking about, again, protectionism. So it's imposing trade restrictions, and we'll see what will happen in the next few weeks. What do you think could happen on the European market? Are volumes going to be missing?
It's question for 10 hours discussion, of course.
We don't have 10 hours.
But what I will say, first of all, my personal opinion, trade restriction cannot support or change competitiveness of European steel producers. So it only can support margin. What we see already, we see that margin is perfect right now when we'll compare with October 2024. So it will
grew a little bit, yes.
Yeah. It support margin, first of all. Of course, we expect that it will be 2025 -4 million ton of imported steel products. Yeah. So of course it will impact on European steel market, but we already see that new importers coming and replacing it. Yeah, Algeria, Malaysia, and other. It was so many times such waves in European steel market. First was Russia, then China, then Turkey, and so on. It was restrictions, anti-dumping, and then come new suppliers. Everybody love to produce steel, and they love to export steel. You understand what I mean? That's why, of course, it will be some volumes that coming out, but when we look on 30 million ton of import of steel to Europe, of course, it will -20%, -30% in 2-3 years. But it will not support competitiveness of European steel producers with such energy prices, with potential scrap leakage that you have, and also with cheap Russian slab and pig iron import. First 2 months is already of this year, already 1.3 million ton of import of Russian semi-finished products to Europe with huge discount. We understand why Europe still buy it, but it also impacted negatively on European steel producers. So that's why it's a very, very complicated question, and only with trade restriction you cannot support European steel producers.
One very last question regards the Metinvest plans for Italy. They, according to their plans, are buying a new plant for the production of steel plates. What could happen in the relationships between Italy and Ukraine thanks to this huge investment?
So it's a perfect example of a real integration of Ukraine in European economy, in European Union. So it's real cooperation. For me, integration, it's not signing papers, it's trade and investment. Yeah. So what we see, Ukraine has a huge iron ore reserves, has big possibility and capacity already to produce DR pellets for green steel transition in Europe for DRI EAF plants. So, and this supply chain will work like that. Metinvest show with this project and Daniele how it will work. Perfect and modern technology from Italy. Ukrainian raw materials, they are pellets that will produce for it, and I think it will be from 1 till 2 million tons that will produced and shipped to this plant for producing green steel. So with I believe more in such project than in all others green steel projects supported by subsidies and grants, because real steel production must be based on market elements, not on subsidies. And also very important to understand that Ukraine can supply Europe 20-25 million ton of DR grades for their EAF DRI plants. So Ukraine can be biggest supporter of European green steel transition as a part of European economy. So this is a perfect example, and I'm sure that Italian government, Italian economy also will have many, many pluses from this example, and will show how real cooperation between our country work.
Thank you, Stanislav, for your insights.
Thank you very much.